Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. I'm Dad. And today I want to talk about Isom #1 and #2. When Isom #1 came out, I did not yet have a channel. And I didn't want to put any potential spoilers out there because it was kind of a big deal that this is a whole new comic book universe that's being created, and Eric July wanted people to sort of get to experience it firsthand, because obviously there were going to be a lot of people who were going to be jumping into Isom because of the novelty of it, and I think there was a desire for people to actually, read the book and be able to judge it based upon on the content rather than on all the other stuff going on. I love small press. I love indie. I always have, and so I was down for this because I remember hearing him talk about wanting to create a comic book company and not really knowing much about Eric's past. I thought, well, okay, that's pretty ambitious, like not just I want to make a comic book, but I want to make a comic book company, and you kind of go, can he do it? What are we going to get here? So when Isom #1 finally arrived, I was very interested in seeing what we were going to be getting from this book, and I was very happy with what I got in this book. It's well, let's start off actually with some of the criticisms that people have had. Besides those of just they don't like Eric July because of his politics and stuff. Obviously, that's an element out there. That's fine. I mean, look, that's as old as comic books. I mean, like I said in a past video for Private American, I mean, Marvel Comics basically had Richard Nixon as the leader of the Secret Empire and had him commit suicide in the White House. Politics can piss people off in any walk of life, and so some people don't like Eric. So be it. That's fine. But in terms of the book, the main things I've heard people complain about are pacing and art. There's some people don't like Cliff Richard's art in the book. I think it does a good job of telling the story. It's reminiscent to me of more the DC house style than the Marvel. It's not overly dramatic about stuff, But I think the art gets the work done, and there's some very good panels, for sure, in the book. But I see the complaint people have. They're looking for something more that has more of a wow factor. But overall, I think it's fine, and some of it's very good. Pacing. The book's too slow. Well, too slow for what? Too slow for personal tastes? All right, sure. You can't argue with that. Too slow for the story? No, I don't think it is. What is very obvious in these books is that Eric July is in fact creating not just a sort of one-shot graphic novel, to get your attention. He's playing a long game. He's trying to create the foundations for not just a long series, but for several series, for a whole universe of comics. And I think for the story that we're getting, the pacing makes sense. Now, if this was divided up into like 3 or 4 floppies, it probably would be a little too slow. But it's not. It's a single volume. And so what you get in Isom #1, you get a nice introduction to the characters. And not just to Isom. You also get to meet the characters in his orbit, his sister, his niece, like his foreman on his ranch. And I think especially for his sister and his niece, you get very likable characters that you're going to be interested in, which obviously creates story opportunities for when they might be put in danger. And you also get to see in this book different sides of Avery Isom. You know, he's a rounded character. He's not a one note character, and you also get some great glimpses of the greater world when you get to see Alpha Core for a moment, and you get to see Norfolka, which is really interesting, and especially Yaira. Now, Yaira was a great surprise for me because seeing some of the early art for her, in my mind, I said, okay, this is kind of like, to use a D&D-ism, this is kind of a magic user type character. Not physically imposing, but probably has some interesting super abilities. I don't know what they are. Maybe they have something to do with light. Dude, when she shows up in here, totally busted my expectations. And therefore makes the character a lot more interesting. Alpha Core as well. Are they good guys? Are they bad? What are these guys? And obviously we're going to get to see more of that when their books come out. But he's doing a good job of giving you a little bit, you know, a few answers, a few tidbits, some questions, some mysteries, you know, that are going to draw you into it and help create the fabric for a bigger universe. It's not all once. It's not just, you know, we're going to do some villain of the week stuff, or we're going to start off with a long thing about the origin of the character. It's being metered out to us little by little, which is nice. I like that. It keeps me interested. But there's some really good scenes in this. When he was, you know, seeing his niece, I loved that stuff. Yaira showing up. I like seeing him get drawn into this. We have an interesting villain in the piece, you know, and we're going to see more of him. But like, what's he really up to? You get the idea. This is not a good guy, but what is he doing? What is he up to? What's happening? He's got some thugs, you know, and you also get some interesting stuff into like of the wider world. Like, where do these superheroes or these superhumans fit into the world? How are they treated? How do people regard them? And so, you know, so I think this was a great book. What I got from this was, number one, I said, well, I'll start reading it a little bit, and you know, I'll finish it whenever. And I got it in just one sitting. I read through it because it kept me engaged, and it definitely made me want more. And so a couple days ago, more finally showed up. And I think what you see in here is a continuation of what I was talking about in Isom number 1. He's answering questions. Why was Avery on a ranch instead of out fighting crime? You get to learn about that. But in learning about it, there's more questions to be answered. You got some more interesting character introductions. Bloodruth, obviously, is, you know, oh, that's funny. See, when you're doing this, you're kind of going opposite. I thought I was pointing over here. And all right, sorry, Ruth. No, but she's an interesting character. Kind of, you know, like, it brings in another dimension to the story. She's reminiscent to me of like some of the cool 70s Marvel supernatural characters, like, you know, Son of Satan, Brother Voodoo, and all that. That was kind of like, you know, you had the Doctor Strange, Dr. Fate style of magic in comic books. It's kind of the more formal academic, and then these guys were more kind of like, you know, crazy powers and stuff. It really, you know, that stuff fed into the 70s, you know, interest in all of that kind of stuff. And she's kind of there. She's not like, you know, she ain't Doctor Strange, but she might be as powerful as Doctor Strange. Interesting, you know, strengths and weaknesses, though. You know, and you can see from the cover, yeah, he's tangling with some weird stuff in this issue. And it, you know, at first you're kind of going, wait a minute, what happened to the guy in the first issue that he was going after? I mean, that's addressed. That story is forwarded. And you do get some more glimpses of Alpha Core and Yaira. just to kind of keep you interested until their books come out. But you're going, okay, well, wait a minute. Like, now there's another dimension added. Another character comes in, you know, and with him, and then but all of a sudden now, you know, Isom's kind of drawn into this other issue. It sort of forces itself on him, and you're kind of like going, wow, you get some real interesting world building. I mean, number one, we find out this ain't our Earth that we're dealing with. This is like this is an alternate take. You know, there's a different history here, so that's interesting. You get some concept of the maybe, you know, there are other dimensions, and that, yeah, Isom has maybe some connection to them as well. Again, it's giving you a bit, and then it's giving you more mysteries though to keep you coming into the next issue. And so it seems like it kind of splits off on a side quest in this one, and I have a feeling that they're going to come back together in part 3, which should round out the ill-advised story arc. But look, I can't say enough. These are quality books. They're keeping me engaged. They're making me interested. I want to see how this world unfolds. I like the characters. That's one thing I really enjoyed. Is it wasn't one of those books where you're coming off going, man, I can do without that character. They're kind of annoying. No, they're solid, and they feel real. And that's something else you get in these books. They walk a really interesting tightrope between a sort of, you know, okay, look, it's fantasy. It's, you know, it's a comic book, but between a sort of grounded world of real people and this world of heroes and villains and magic and such. They do a nice job of playing it. I say, Eric primarily, I guess. Well, no, that's not, you know, the artist has a lot to do with the story too, but they're doing a good job of keeping you sort of, you know, with one foot in reality, with real grounded characters that are rounded, that are more fully realized than a lot of characters you get in comic books. So you feel the danger when they might be in danger. I mean, you wonder a lot in this book. I mean, that's one of the things that kept me in number 2 was going, ooh, who can we trust? Who can we trust? There's at least 3 opportunities for betrayal. And one of them seems like it probably is going to be a betrayal. One of them is kind of, you know, is kind of mama bear, and there's a baby bear in there too. And so, but of course, you go, oh, the guy who seems like he's probably not a betrayer, maybe he's really the betrayer. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff in these books. They're packed. They're fun. Yes, the pacing is a little bit on the slower side, but I think it serves the story. I don't think it hurts it. I think it keeps you interested. It did for me, at least. Kept me interested. Makes me feel like this is not like a, you know, one-shot, quickie, let me get some quick attention. It's like, no, we're building something. You know, Eric did really well on his first 2 campaigns. I think if he'd made 1/10 of that money, he would be walking a very similar path that he is now. He's building something for the long haul, and it's kind of cool to be in the ground floor on that. So, Isom, number 1 and number 2, I recommend these books. If you're worried about politics, they're not in them. You know, outside of the normal, there's powerful people who do bad things. That's there, but that's in just about every single comic book that you're going to get. They're not political diatribes. They are comic books. They're about heroes and they're about villains. And they're about interesting heroes and villains. And, you know, I can't come out of these and say, I got it, I understand the story, I know who all these people are. I don't. Yet. And not in a bad way. Not in a way where you're going, I don't get this kid. You get it, but you're going, oh, there's more. There's an onion here. We're going to unfold it little by little by little. And that's what I think you want from modern comic books, because as much as I've loved a lot of the new indie books that are coming out, I kind of miss, you know, I kind of grew up on the Bronze Age of DC and Marvel. And I mean, I got indie stuff back then too. But the DC Marvel stuff, this fabric of a universe, this tapestry, I really loved that. That was really fun, and I feel like Eric July's creating something new in that vein here, and so I highly suggest these books. Again, if you really hate Eric July, you're going to hate Eric July. That's fine. You can do what you want. But if you're going, man, I don't know, dude, he's kind of political. I don't know if I want to. The books aren't political. They aren't. It's classic heroism, adventure, action. There's supernatural elements to it. I think you'll like them. If you need something that is, if you got a short attention span, maybe they're not going to work out that well for you because they're not made for that. But I think if you're most people and you like comic books, I think you're going to like Isom. So give it a try. I'll put a link to the Rippaverse in the description, although I think people could probably find it anyways. But so that will do it for Dad's Den today. God bless everybody. Be kind to one another, and try to have some fun out there, and go get Isom.